It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Tuesday, August 27th. I'm Wendy Corr, bringing you headlines from the Cowboy State Daily newsroom, brought to you by Serve Wyoming, Wyoming's Center for Volunteerism and AmeriCorps service for the last 30 years. For volunteer opportunities, visit servewyoming.org. A fire sparked in northeastern Wyoming and running into southern Montana continues to grow. The Remington fire is now at nearly 200,000 acres with 0% containment. But Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that a nearby fire in Johnson County, which forced evacuations and scorched thousands of acres of grasslands, is beginning to lessen in force.
The biggest fire early on was the house draw fire, which has now been eclipsed in volume by the Remington fire up in Sheridan County, Montana. The house draw fire, despite reaching like 175,000 acres early on, is holding, and it's 88% contained.
However, in nearby Campbell County, there's an all out effort to save structures and land from the Flat Rock Fire and the Constitution Fire. But McFarland reports there's been some tension between private landowners and county firefighters.
There are private sector drivers of big construction equipment out on the Flat Rock, the Constitution Fire in Campbell County, and they are blading and piling up dirt berms and dozing off the vegetation to create these fire break lines. Now, at least a couple of them who said, yeah, some of these county firefighters just aren't doing much while we're out there scrambling. The fire department has countered, meanwhile, saying, some of these strategies where we're supposed to watch the fire line for embers, for stray embers, it looks like we're sitting around when really we're not. There was another Campbell County resident who said that he didn't understand all the outrage because the firefighters saved his home.
The Flat Rock Fire has burned more than 52,000 acres and is 35% contained as of the last estimate. The Constitution Fire is nearly 25,000 acres and 28% contained. Colorado's United Power Incorporated severed ties with Tri-State Generation and Transmission Association, a cooperative that many rural Wyoming electric companies are members of. They did so in May, and energy reporter Pat Mayo spoke with United's CEO, Mark Gabriel, about why the company left, taking 20% of Tri-State's revenue with them.
What I found interesting about Mark is that he's rethinking the way he thinks about transmission, in the sense that he's no longer thinking big like that, but he's thinking more local. He calls it hyper-localization of electricity. But, people are watching him closely, including the 8 electricity distribution co-ops here in Wyoming. They want to know how he does, how he fares, and what their future might hold.
United is working towards getting power from alternative forms of energy, such as wind turbines and solar panels, plus tapping power from utility-scale batteries that store electricity. Well, as many other areas of Wyoming battle huge wildfires, the first snow of the season blanketed Togety Pass on Monday morning. But don't read into that too much. Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi reports that the state isn't about to be plunged into an early winter.
I spoke to Cowboy State Daily meteorologist Don Day about it, and he said there's nothing unusual about getting snow at the high elevations at this time of year. As these cold fronts start moving in and getting stronger, that can manifest as snow at the high elevation. So it's a sign that summer is close to ending, but it's not over. There's still plenty of summer weather left, and probably the best thing to come out of this particular snow flurry is that a lot of it fell on the Fish Creek fire. So that'll provide some relief, and there's a chance that we're going to be seeing more of that as the weeks go on, but it's not worth reading into too much. Certainly not a sign of seasonal change anytime soon.
Another cold front is anticipated to arrive Wednesday night, carrying more moisture and causing a slight drop in temperatures. But by the weekend, temperatures will bounce back to late summer averages across Wyoming. And now let's take a look at today's weather with Cowboy State Daily meteorologist Don Day.
Well, the storm system that brought some snow to western Wyoming, Togety Pass and the Tetons yesterday, well, that system has moved off to the east, but it did bring relief. It brought cooler temperatures and wet conditions to some areas of northern Wyoming, northeastern Wyoming, western Wyoming, and southern Montana that have been affected by the wildfires. The good news is it will be a cool day that will keep humidities high, but behind the front, the air is much drier, and we're going to go through a period of time today, tomorrow, and likely Thursday where dry conditions will be found across the state. We'll have a bit of wind developing Wednesday as well. So despite the recent trend of cooler weather and wet weather in some areas, it's back to dry, warmer conditions today and tomorrow.
You can get Don's full forecast on the Cowboy State Daily website. I'll be back in just 15 seconds with more news.
Your attention is precious. That's why Blue Cross Blue Shield of Wyoming works hard to make navigating your healthcare easier. Because having the right health insurance means not having to think about it, letting you focus on you. That's the benefit of Blue.
One of the nation's elite firefighting teams has moved onto the Brooks Lake Lodge scene. The team will put in place advanced firefighting strategies that Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean reports will hopefully safeguard one of Wyoming's most iconic and historical lodges, which is directly in the path of the Fish Creek fire in northwest Wyoming.
There are 44 of these elite teams in the nation. They're each staged in a different region of the country. The Rocky Mountains has about 5 of them. These are the guys you call when an asset is too precious to lose. They use science, of course. They stage all this water, but, it's a specific distance from the buildings, and they knock out 80% of the risk just with keeping the ground around the buildings damp so that these firebrands can't fly in and land and start a new fire.
The fire has burned more than 11,278 acres in the Bridger-Teton National Forest and is at 23% containment. A Casper police officer faces 6 felony charges stemming from an alleged 17-hour armed standoff when he was off duty at an Eastside apartment complex that began late Thursday night. Cowboy State Daily's Dale Killingbeck reports that 30-year-old Michael Hughes barricaded himself inside the Quail Run apartments after police were called around 11:30 p.m. Thursday on a report of an armed suicidal person.
Apparently, it involved a relationship problem. He was using alcohol, and according to statements in court, there was a couple of shots fired. There were some apartments at Quail Run that were evacuated. Some people, I think it was voluntary.
Hughes has been charged on suspicion of 5 counts of aggravated assault and 1 of property destruction, $1,000 or more, all felonies. He also faces a misdemeanor charge of reckless endangering with a firearm. And it was just another quiet Sunday evening toward the end of July for Albany County rancher Kelly McGuire when she got a phone call she never would have expected. The caller was a location scout for country music superstar Lainey Wilson, who was looking for locations to film the video for Wilson's latest hit song, Whirlwind. Cowboy State Daily's Mark Hines reports that McGuire's Oxford Ranch was just one of several locations in and around Laramie that were chosen as locations in the video.
So they came out Wednesday and they did some primary scenes with some of the actors who play a young couple in love in the video. And then that Thursday, Lainey Wilson herself came out and shot her key scenes on the ranch. There's also quite a few scenes that don't have Lainey Wilson in them. They just have the young couple in them that were shot in Laramie. You can see the Cowboy Saloon. You can see the interior and some of the back of the exterior of Jay's Prairie Rose Cafe. You can see the Garfield footbridge that goes over the railroad tracks.
Wilson is one of country music's biggest stars and played at Cheyenne Frontier Days on July 26th. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the daily newsletter button on cowboystatedaily.com. And you can watch this newscast every day by clicking subscribe on our YouTube channel. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily.